Hello, good afternoon. I don't know who's more excited, me that I get to introduce this lovely person, or you guys that we're at the end here and ready to probably have drinks and a good time. I have the pleasure of introducing our closing keynote. After graduating from Kent State University, Matt Likens began his professional career with J&J and then spent more than 20 years at Baxter Healthcare, culminating in the position of president of Baxter Biotech North America. In July of 2006, Matt actually relocated here to Arizona to become president, CEO, and the second employee of Ulthera, which is an energy-based aesthetic device using high-focused ultrasound. Profitable since 2011, Ulthera was acquired by Merz Pharma GmbH in July of 2014 for $600 million, in an amount representing 6.6 times trailing 12 months revenue, a transaction named 2014's Arizona Deal of the Year by the state's Association for Corporate Growth. In 2012, the Business Journal named Matt one of Arizona's most admired CEOs, and in June of 2015, Ernst & Young presented him with the Entrepreneur of the Year award for the Mountain Desert region. Matt really believes in practicing servant leadership, establishing consistent operating principles, and determining a broader organizational purpose. It is clear in working with Matt that he has a long history of success and solid leadership, but in working with him directly day to day, it really is his charismatic, authentic leadership style that inspires everyone, some of whom are here today, to be their very, very best. The culture he fostered and the talent he attracted ultimately led to an amazing story of success at Ulthera that I got to be a part of. You will find in listening to him today that he's a man who's humble and transparent and has made me laugh every day for the last 5 years. So please help me welcome Matt Likens.
What an introduction. Thank you, Stacy. Hey, can we all stand up? Can we stand up, really? Everybody just stand up, stretch out. Let's get some energy in this room before we go to a reception, right? Okay, good. And more. I mean, move around a little bit. Is there music? Can we pipe music in? Should I sing? Minar, you know a song. Go ahead. Okay, we can move in our chairs. All right. There's been a lot of science today, and when Joan was up here at lunchtime, at the end of it, we gave her a really half-hearted thank you. And who's responsible for this? Who's the person whose tireless energy, perseverance, never say no, we can do it, her attitude is out there for all of us. We're all benefiting from that as she represents the biotechnology company within Arizona. So let's give her a really good round of applause. And I'd also like to recognize Stacy Mallon. You saw Stacy in the panel this morning. Both Stacy and I have 70 days left with the company that acquired us. And at that point, we have to figure out what we want to do when we grow up. I clearly haven't grown up yet. Stacy's much more mature than I am. She joined us 5 years ago, and that was after we had raised a third round of financing, and we really had enough fuel to really fill out the management team at that point and started to drive real growth in the business. And we always hired in a lagging fashion. We wanted to drive revenue and gross profits first and then bring on the resources to manage that. Also in the back of the room, Minar Shabandar, who's been with us for like 8 years now, first as an intern, then as a part-time worker, and then with his biomedical degree from ASU, has come on and spearheads a number of our clinical trials. Minar, please stand up. Thank you. And Christy Gephardt, who's our Director of Customer Operations. And as we were managing that and growing the organization in order to drive real customer satisfaction in the marketplace, Christy really transformed our operations. We stole her from C.R. Bard. Christy, can you stand up as well? Thanks. Good, thank you. It's an honor to be here and to talk today. I'm not going to talk science, so I've been trying to keep up with all these conversations and the presentations. I'll do my best. We have science as part of Ulthera, but it's a broader story. And so what I'll take you through today is, thank you both of them. So a little bit about my personal background, that'll be brief. Early career experiences and lessons learned, the whole world of startups and the entrepreneurial environment. Some success, a failed startup at GMP Companies, success at Ulthera, and then lessons learned along the way. So hopefully there's some lesson that you may take from this that might be helpful in your endeavors. So I grew up in Ravenna, Ohio, Northeast Ohio, about 15 miles from Akron, 30 miles from Cleveland. Went to Kent State University, lived at home for the 4 years that I went to Kent. It was only 6 miles down the road. My mother worked in the registrar's office at the university. First quarter tuition, thanks to that employee discount, was $92. How do you like that? I mean, now that's value for education, right? Even at Kent State. So I think ASU costs a little more than that today. And so our kids went to Syracuse, which don't even talk to me about that. I'm still paying for that, I think. And Indiana University, which wasn't so bad. I was going to be a journalist, and then I was going to be a broadcaster. And then beginning in my junior year, when I realized what I would command in the marketplace for either of those professions, I thought, maybe I should get a business degree. So moved over, majored in marketing, and took a lot of classes because I really hadn't taken any classes and I wanted to get out in 4 years. So majored in marketing, degree in business administration, played basketball at Kent, at least for 1 year as a freshman, and have continued to play basketball since. I don't play as often anymore. I never had any verticals, so nothing's different now than it was 40 years ago. But right out of school, went to J&J, spent 3 years there, but not with a typical J&J company. The Permacell tape division of J&J, nothing to do with healthcare, nothing to do with patients. Industrial tape, 300 different kinds of tape, masking tape, strapping tape. And it's unbelievable how much tape is actually on aircraft. It holds in 747s together. It's all tape. That's how they get in the air. It's very lightweight. But we were competing with 3M. You've heard of 3M, the Scotch tape, right? 80% market share, 3M. J&J, 10% market share. 3M is based where? St. Paul, right. So they said, Matt, we want you to have a sales territory. It's going to be in the Twin Cities. Great, I'll go up there. So I learned rejection very early in my career. Everyone you wanted to sell tape to, you'll never guess who their supplier was. But there'll be a lesson learned there that I'll share in a minute. After 3 years there, I moved from Minnesota down to Houston and joined Baxter Healthcare in the blood collection and transfusion medicine business of Baxter, and then eventually into hemophilia, dialysis, immunotherapy, and only stayed there 23 years. So I really don't have much of an entrepreneurial bent to my resume, okay? It seemed like every time I was looking for something new to do, Baxter fortunately was growing and getting into different areas and was able to move into different areas of responsibility and continue to grow and learn. 2001, got that call out of the blue from that recruiter, and having always wanted to be in something new and exciting. It was a well-funded startup based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, called GMP Companies. They had raised $180 million of venture capital financing, led by Texas Pacific Group, the private equity firm out of San Francisco, but also major corporations, Medtronic, Motorola, 3M, Quest Diagnostics, Procter & Gamble Pharmaceuticals, had all invested. They had 14 different licensing agreements at GMP Companies and a core group of about 100 employees to develop each of these and then to find the right commercial partner. So had some lessons learned there. To be really plain, everything not to do in a startup is what I learned in those 5 years. Very beneficial for moving out to Arizona and starting up with Ulthera. Ulthera, July of 2006 to the present, as Stacy mentioned. So a little bit more background. My first job was on a muck farm. Who knows what a muck farm is? There's a hand. Okay, tell us.
Well, you muck out stalls of manure, right?
Well, I wasn't on that muck farm, okay? This was black, loamy soil where they're growing vegetable radishes and mustard and all types of vegetables. And Joe Naraki would hire all the kids and throw them into a Chevrolet El Camino. My brother was 8 years old. I was 10 years old when we were making 25 cents an hour, crawling through either planting them or weeding. And there were 10 of us in that car. And so it didn't last too long, but it was a first job. Newspaper delivery, Akron Beacon Journal, Ravenna Record Courier. You've all probably read those papers. You're subscribing now? Oh no, newspapers, that's right. Shoveling snow, mowing lawns, maintenance man, Ravenna Dry Cleaners. 2 summers as a nipple tester for the Even Flow Baby Bottle Company. Now that's the only job I've really had that truly sucked. Good, you're picking this is my A material, okay? That's true. It was actually a statistical sampling of the rubber that goes into even flow baby bottle nipples and tensile strength and that. So I actually did not try them out personally. And then pumped gas as I was in school. So lots of different, and there I am. I'm on the right. Met my wife at Kent State. She's on the left. We parted ways for 5 years and got back together, and we've been together ever since 1980. And we're not leaving Arizona. My wife wants to stay here after 10 moves. We're staying here, so looking forward to that. So a rich and diverse geographic and cultural experience since Kent State. So New Jersey with J&J, Minneapolis, Houston, to Chicago with Baxter then, Denver, Colorado as a Western Regional Sales Manager, back to Chicago, Munich, Germany for 3 years as a VP of Marketing for Baxter Biotech Europe. We launched the first recombinant factor VIII product for the treatment of hemophilia. Fantastic advancement, especially after contaminated plasma products plagued not just the industry, but devastated the hemophilia community in the late 80s. So we were the first to market, and launching a novel technology like that, we literally could have charged anything for it. So it was a wonderful case study in how to market effectively at a fair premium in the price. But Baxter continues to dominate that market today, I think because of a lot of good decisions that were made 20 years ago now. From Munich back to Chicago, and then left in 2001 for the startup in Fort Lauderdale, and then Arizona. So we look back on it, and we've met friends and great acquaintances in each of the locations. It's been a really rich experience for us. So lessons learned at J&J. I mentioned 3M and their dominance in the marketplace, and companies that dominate any market segment inevitably get complacent. And a solid second supplier, once I recovered from this barrage of rejection, I realized that if I was only asking for 20% of their business, and I was spreading some uncertainty over whether continuity of supply could be assured if all of their eggs were in 3M's basket, I could be successful. And we only had 10% market share around the country, so 20% was actually doubling what the company had. And I got 20% and 20% and 20%, and a lot of folks who didn't have a direct tie to 3M were looking for someone else that they might do business with. And so I really committed at that time that, if I'm ever in a situation where we have a dominant share of the market, I never want to take it for granted. And that's a lesson learned there. Always commemorate agreements in writing. So I agreed to move from Minneapolis to Houston. There were promises made to me at J&J at the time. I didn't get it in writing. They didn't live up to their side of it. I didn't have anything to show. So it wasn't long after that that I left J&J and went to Baxter Healthcare. J&J is a great company, great credo. You know, you can't, my daughter worked for J&J for 5 years, so nothing against the company. It was my own short-sightedness that caused that. Never made that mistake again. Baxter, lessons learned. Baxter International, a healthcare company, but it's really a financial company. At least it was when I was there. Finance was the focused function within the organization, and you really needed to know your numbers. We had innovative technologies, but very much it was about the P&L and the balance sheet. So that was great, but sometimes the customer focus was an afterthought. So the technology will win. Well, it will, but only for so long. Others catch up on technology. So I felt like the customer focus piece needed to be emphasized more. Great global company though, and even though it was global, you had to be customized for each of the global markets and the specific regional markets that you wanted to be successful in. Respect, responsiveness, results. Those were the 3 R's at Baxter. So very simple to understand. Unfortunately, it seemed to most of us who were there that it was results, results, results. Sometimes the respect wasn't quite what it needed to be. Sometimes the responsiveness to customers wasn't quite what it needed to be, and those were areas for improvement. So thought, again, it's great to say that, but the company actually has to behave that way for it to have credibility within the whole organization. I did think Baxter's motto, critical therapies for life-threatening conditions, was not only catchy, I think it's catchy, but it was very meaningful. And we felt like if we were successful with our technologies, whether it was the first recombinant product for hemophilia or the first peritoneal dialysis technology that allowed patients to live a more normal life while being on dialysis, that patients would be better served. And it got us up in the morning. That's why you stay at a company for 23 years, because you really believe in what you're doing. And finally, GMP Companies. $180 million, yet cash needed to still be sacred. It was not, okay? So we had 14 licensing agreements, and the philosophy was, these are all like one's children, right? I mean, you may have a favorite child, you'd never admit it, right? You want to treat all your children equally, give them all equal opportunities. That's not necessarily conducive to, at some point, generating a bottom line. And so we really needed to practice portfolio management. So the lack of focus there really hurt the company. There were 2 or 3 technologies that were by far closer to market, opportunities for revenue and gross profit. And if we would have focused resources there, instead of spreading them equally over 14 different opportunities, we would have been a lot better off. Superior intellect, really smart people there. However, egos to match, egos beyond the intellect. And that gets in the way of making business decisions that are right for the business. People needed to be right themselves, and that's never a good thing. So that was a lesson learned there. Gee, if I ever have a chance to get in an early stage leadership role, I don't want to behave that way. Authenticity is more important than IQ. IQ is great, and it's wonderful to have that, but be authentic. Have some integrity while you're doing it. Ulthera, we'll jump into that. Michael Slayton's our founder, and as Stacy said, it's focused ultrasound with imaging. So we're imaging skin tissue down to 8 millimeters of depth. We can confirm, doctors can confirm on patients that there's no reason not to apply this tissue with focused ultrasound. In a 1-hour treatment, there are 800 lines of treatment at 3 different depths. 4.5 millimeters of depth, 3 millimeters of depth, 1.5 millimeters of depth. It yields about 15,000 points of thermal coagulation at those depths. And in each one of those, it begins the process of building new collagen. So over the course of the next 3 to 6 months, firming, tightening, and lifting occurs to just about any part of the anatomy. But our first clearance was for a brow lift. Second clearance was for a lower face and neck lift. We have an indication for treating the décolletage as well. And trust me, physicians and patients around the world have used it on just about every part of the anatomy. And I'll get into that in a little bit later. So Michael Sladen, our founder, is here in Mesa. Our mad Russian scientist founder. He grew up in Moscow. Went to school at Ukraine, in the Ukraine at Kiev State University, PhD in acoustics, over 100 patents, his name's on them, and brilliant engineer. And also very visionary to get those filed and get a number of patents issued in all the major markets around the world. That's a key part to the value of Ulthera for anybody considering acquiring us. Michael had a 4-year joint venture with J&J Ethicon Endosurgery, trying to treat liver cancer in a minimally invasive way with focused ultrasound to image where the cancerous tissue was and to affect it with that focused ultrasound. And that helped develop the technology that ended up becoming Ultherapy. So J&J spent $23 million on that, and this was highly differentiated technology. So the system itself, it's a control unit about the size of a desktop computer, weighs about 20 pounds, and there are now over 4,000 of these in dermatology, plastic surgery, and general practitioner offices in 65 countries around the world, including the US. So that's the capital piece. And then there are multi-patient disposable transducers. That's our razor blade. That's the annuity piece of our business. So they each have a certain capacity of lines of treatment, and once you use those up, you need to reorder another transducer. So the razor blade model works, and that ongoing recurring revenue stream was the other thing I learned at Baxter. If you're going to sell a piece of capital, make sure there's something more coming in for it, because it's hard to get commitments to $70,000, $75,000 for your capital in this case. And so once it's out there and you've done that hard work, an ongoing business and stream of revenue from it. And the Ulthera system was able to accomplish that. Just to give you an idea of the type of lift, so this is a brow lift actually after 450 days. So I believe that's 15 months. And this was typical, about a 3 millimeter brow lift is what prompted our first FDA clearance. This is a lower face and neck treatment, and before and after. So again, this is not high science, this is not curing cancer, this is aesthetic improvement. We are going after indications such as acne, rosacea. There's a condition of excessive perspiration called hyperhidrosis, where you sweat unbelievably, and we actually have done clinical trials, right, Manar, and we've proven that we can have an effect there. In fact, when we asked the team, do you think we can have an effect on hyperhidrosis, what was the answer? No sweat, right, good. All right, yeah, Manar, I'm glad you're here today, good. So we have a little fun with this business as well. So there's one more side profile of a really nice result from an Ulthera treatment. So the field of aesthetic medicine is known for snake oil more than high science and clinical rigor. And so coming into this field from real medicine, you had to ask yourself, so what can we do to differentiate ourselves? We have a highly differentiated technology. It's imaging, it's treating very precisely, and we're getting really consistent clinical results, which is unusual in the field of aesthetics. These lotions and potions are often called hope in a bottle, right? Because there's no clinical data behind them. So we said, we're going to be different. We're going to do clinical studies. We're going to understand our mechanism of action. And so this neocollagenesis, building new collagen, we've actually done a study. We're measuring after treatment 30% more new collagen, type 1 and type 3 collagen, than an untreated segment of the tissue. So we've documented that, which is unusual. We have over 90% treatment efficacy. So the other thing we wanted to do is we wanted to be that company that customers could rely upon long term. We wanted to build additional capabilities, new clinical indications, enhancements to our technology over time. We wanted to reward our customers for the leap of faith that they took in the early days to buy a new technology that was unknown from an unknown company. And so by being committed to that, we were able to be highly different from other companies in this market. There's a saying in the market, lasers are that's the big technology, hair removal, resurfacing of skin, and laser salespeople, capital equipment salespeople can sometimes be quite aggravating. And so there's a saying, how do you get rid of those pesky laser representatives? And the answer is you buy their system, because typically you'll never hear from the company again, okay? And so that was aggravating for some, but for us it was an opportunity. So we've done, now on the clinical side, we've done 52 clinical studies. We have 44 published peer-reviewed papers, in prestigious journals. And we've had 3 software upgrades over the last 8 years that we've been commercial, all free of charge to our customers. We've gotten additional clinical indications, and we continue to expand the utilization of the technology in the practices that have adopted them. So we feel like we've done it right from that standpoint. Funding for the company, they'd raised $5.5 million before I joined. That was in November of 2005. 3i, large private equity firm out of London, was the lone investor there. Shortly after I came in December of 2007, we raised $24.5 million. New Enterprise Associates led that. They're out of Menlo Park. They currently have about $18 billion under management. So they and Kleiner Perkins are known to be the 2 largest VCs, at least in the US. They were really good investors for us. 3i's stake was actually acquired by Apposite Capital, also out of London, a much smaller firm, in May of 2009. As one's raising money, everyone who wants to give you money talks about partnering with you as an entrepreneur. Okay, when you hear that word, alarms should go off, because what I found is as long as everything's going really well, yes, they want to be your partner, but at the first sign of a hiccup or challenges, your partner changes. The whole nature of the discussion changes. So partnership in their view may be a little different than what we had in mind. We did monetize the company, but this was after we filed to go public in January of 2014. And we had 3 amendments to our S1 document. And as we were filling out that 3rd amendment, we had filed under the Jobs Act, so all the data was private and confidential for 90 days. But when it became public knowledge, there were 3 companies that were interested in acquiring Ulthera, which was a wonderful dynamic. And as the bidding went up, we decided that we were probably better off to take that offer from Merz Pharma than face the challenges and the vagaries of the public markets. So, and that was in July of 2014. It is from what I hear, NEA tells me the 5th largest sale of a privately held US medical device company. So it was good. And it was 6.6 times trailing 12 months, and typically in the medical device area, if you can get 3 or 3.5, you're doing well. So we felt it was a fair price to pay. This is maybe my favorite chart. As we launched Ulthera outside the US in the 4th quarter of 2008, we generated $500,000 in revenue. Health Canada approval came in May of 2009. Finally, FDA approval came in September of 2009. So we grew to $5 million, $18 million, $41, $59, $82. And in calendar year 2014, 118 million in revenue. Calendar year 2015 that just ended, we hit 150 as part of the Merz organization. And we had a significant portion of our revenue. In fact, in 2009, it was almost all from outside the US where we started. And then using distributors to get into those 65 countries outside the US, we had lower margins and less revenue per system sold there, but it was a wonderful way to become global. Revenue from transducers, the annuity that we talked about, over 50% of our revenue as we moved to 2014. It's about 60% today. So that's going to continue. And then operating income. So we have a number of operating principles. One is cost effectiveness. And as you can see, as a startup, we didn't want to take any more money than what we actually needed. So in 2011, we were actually able to squeak out about $500,000 in profit, and it went up to 18 million as we finished 2014. And I think that was a very attractive part of the Ulthera story for potential acquirers. It could be accretive very soon after the transaction took place. Keys to success. Most important thing, we heard it earlier today. People, people, people. You can have the greatest technology in the world. In GMP Companies, we had wonderful technologies. We had the wrong team in place with the wrong operating principles. We didn't have operating principles to speak of. So you have to get the right people on the bus. Jim Collins, describes that eloquently in all of his writings. We made a decision in the early days that every employee who joined would be an owner of the company. Everyone would have stock options. You could talk to folks, let's get around here. We all own this business together. What are we going to do? What are the priorities? How are we going to make this the best environment and the best business we can make it? It's our business. It's not mine, okay? Servant leadership, there's a lot written about that. Typically in large corporations, as one rises through the ranks, the mentality can be, well, look at this, all these people work for me. Well, that's really the wrong way to think about it. It's quite a responsibility to know that your job is to remove whatever the obstacles are that are preventing the team from getting the job done. In fact, you need to serve the organization in that way. Doesn't mean you're not responsible, doesn't mean sometimes you don't make unilateral decisions after getting input from the team, but you try to serve the best needs of the organization. Try to communicate with transparency. We established a big, hairy, audacious goal, which I'll talk about. Operating principles, adopted a one-page plan, which is really helpful. If you can distill everything you're trying to do down to one page, if you can explain it to your grandmother, that helps a lot to make sure everybody understands what's happening. We frugally achieved sustainability, and then eventually we adopted a greater purpose. A BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. We had two. We wanted to be different clinically. We wanted to achieve 100% treatment efficacy. Everyone who got an oral therapy treatment would have their desired clinical result. We're not there yet, but we're in the high 90s. It's gotten better and better, and I think Manar can attest to that.
Doing great. We have room probably 96%.
There you go, 96%. And the 4% who may not get a clinically desirable result the first time typically get it in a second treatment. So that was great. And then we thought, well, gee, as long as we're going to do this, and again, I was at Baxter for 23 years, and it was more of a financial institution, so there had to be a number here. So let's create $1 billion in value. And we failed miserably. We only created $600 million in value, so we still had a ways to go there. But we felt it was important to have these as overriding vision for the company, and they actually fit together. The better our clinical efficacy, and if we really focused on that, the more valuable the company would become, because we'd be that much different than anything else that could happen. Operating principles. So there were 5 C's that we started with, and we added the last 2, creativity and collaboration, as we began to grow. Customer focus. This long-term relationship with these adopting physicians around the world, adding more value every year of ownership. That was really important. Consistency. If I was saying something and behaving in a completely different way, that's not consistent. I would be called on that. And as we brought the broader team together, we needed everyone to be operating that same way. And constructive confrontation is one that means everybody's opinion counts, right? Anybody you try to hire the best and the brightest, have an operating environment where you want to hear from them. And if they think we should be doing it, anyone thinks we should be doing something differently, or they disagree with the decision we've made, please voice your opinion. We're not going to punish anyone for having a different idea. So it's really important, and everybody's got to emulate that. Cost effectiveness, you're an owner, treat it like you're an owner. Manage the company's business, not cheaply, but in a frugal fashion. Compliance, we're regulated. Goes without saying. It's got to be important. And then creativity. Business processes, the way we deal with customers, not just the technology itself. And finally, as you grow, you tend to have, sales isn't talking to marketing, quality and regulatory need to communicate, clinical and medical. So we had to remind people that who else should be in this meeting before we actually make a decision. And these were really helpful in guiding the company and having an approach where anybody coming in would hear about these, say, if this is an environment that makes sense for you, this may be a great place for you to work. If it doesn't, then we're better off parting ways now. We didn't come up with a purpose for a while, a broader purpose, as Stacy likes to say, but we had a global business conference, not a sales meeting, because all the functions were represented, in January of 2013, and we had a guest speaker there. Roy Spence, who was a co-author of a book entitled It's Not What You Sell, It's What You Stand For. And in that book, he and his co-author document a number of different companies who have gone above and beyond by saying, we're trying to grow the business, we're trying to be profitable, we're trying to do a lot of things, but we want to have a broader purpose than just business success. And inevitably, those companies perform better than companies who don't take that step. And so Roy spent some time with us before the conference. Roy's quite a character. He ran his own public relations firm with a couple of partners out of Austin, Texas. I lived in Houston for about 5 years, and I think I can talk like a Texan, but I really can't. But Roy from Austin, he grew up there, and he's got this kind of deep Texas accent, and so sometimes I try to emulate him, and so he's addressing us, and he's showing slides of him with Barbara Bush and the whole Bush family, and with Bill and Hillary Clinton, and with Ronald Reagan, and so he's really built a lot of credit. But wow, this guy knows everyone, at very high levels. And then he starts talking about Ulthera, and he said, I've been doing a lot of thinking about Ulthera, and I stay up nights thinking about Ulthera, and Ulthera's got a brow lift, and Ulthera's got a lower face and neck lift, but I submit to you, Ulthera is more than a brow lift, and more than a lower face and neck lift. And we're all sitting there with glasses of wine, and we're getting pretty excited. What's he going to say? And he said, I think Ulthera's got a broader purpose. Ulthera's about lifting lives. and we all jump out of our seats. There are about 100 of us in the room, and say, yes, that's it. We're lifting lives. And it was really exciting until we woke up the next morning and said, well, wait a minute, we're a brow lift, and are we really lifting lives here, or what? And so it took us about 6 months to really massage it, because we didn't want to take ourselves too seriously. I mean, let's face it, we're in aesthetics, okay? But as we thought more and more about it, we said, well, gosh, the people who get the desired clinical result, they feel better about themselves. In fact, they tell us that they feel more confident. They look maybe a little younger. Their skin is firmer. And so their self-esteem is improved. And then we thought, well, gee, that's lifting their lives, isn't it? Yeah. And so what about the interactions we have with the marketplace, with our customers? Shouldn't that be our goal, leaving every interaction having tried at least to lift the spirits, lift the lives, lift the prospects of the folks we're interacting with? And so after a lot of that, we said, yep, that's what we do. That's our greater purpose. It's lifting lives. And so we still have that today, even as part of Merz. And our purpose, we've really thought through how it affects patients, practices, and the local community. We have an outreach program with the Sequoia schools only a mile from our campus, and we have a lot of interactions with them, and they have lots of needs. Every time we go there, we find new needs for them. But it's been something that's really lifted the lives of Ulthera employees, knowing that we can help them. Okay, so I've got 2 kids. Greg is in sports broadcasting. He's 32, and he's in sports talk radio in Miami. Has worked for the Miami Dolphins for the last 2 years. Our daughter, 5 years at J&J. She's 29. She gets married this July. And she's just graduating from the University of Michigan Ross School of Business. She'll go to work for Medtronic in August. And so the advice I give them, I'd like them to gain experience in a more secure operating or business environment first, as opposed to jumping into something entrepreneurial, okay? Zuckerberg, I think, did pretty well for himself. Steve Jobs seemed to do pretty well. Others, Bill Gates, had a nice, move from Harvard, wasn't it? Right into Microsoft. But that's pretty rare. So that's my advice. And then in that experience, find out what resonates for you personally. Style, culture, management approach, industry, values. Don't worry about titles. Are you learning? The moment you start learning, you have to do something else. Life is all about lifelong learning. And continually develop personal network. I didn't do that at Baxter for 23 years. Focus on the job, focus on the job. So that's my advice. That's Dad's advice, right? Business advice. Too often, we view things as we want them to be. And as we don't do real well with bad news, right? And so we do ourselves a favor, though, and with our teams, if we confront the brutal facts. What is reality today? Reality a couple of times before the Series B and before the Series C was that we were 2 weeks away from not being able to make payroll. Everybody in the organization knew it at the time, and we needed to confront that. And if the rounds didn't come through, we would have a different discussion. And so it's better to understand that and have the team understand that than to try to ignore that reality. It always takes twice as long, it costs twice as much. I'm an optimist, but I found that this axiom is generally true. Take the money when you can get it. We always think our enterprises are worth more at any point in time than someone is willing to pay as an investment. So take it when you can get it, and then operate with authenticity. Critical decisions, I think, for the entrepreneurs in the group, whom to hire and when. And I would suggest that keep your burn as low and as manageable as you possibly can for as long as you can, as long as you're not preventing the opportunity to reach its potential longer term. If the opportunity is so great that you should take money in and hire the right people, do it. But that's a judgment call, and get as much input on that as you possibly can. When to take money. Don't take money for as long as you can, as long as you don't hurt the ultimate prospects of your enterprise. Cash is king. Manage it wisely. No matter how much you have, it's never quite enough. And then build a company in a way that keeps all monetization options open. One of the real strengths that we had was that we had disciplined financial systems in place. We ran our clinical trials flawlessly. Everything was done in a way that could withstand the scrutiny of the public markets. The fact that we had filed to go public was tremendous leverage for the potential acquirers. They knew we had another option, and so it made us more valuable in their eyes. And then last, beware product pricing decisions. Too often, entrepreneurs price their product to build volume early. Volume doesn't matter if you're leaving lots of profit on the table. You should price your technologies at the highest possible price you can without the customer absolutely laughing at you or throwing you out of the office. Because if it's too high, you'll find out pretty soon. And you can always, no one will ever question why you decided to lower your price. If you go out too low and at some point in the future want to raise your price, good luck, good luck. That's a very difficult challenge. So I think too much money is left on the table. And finally, I think we need to have some fun here. I've got a short video. We tried to have fun every quarter. We called it a ring the bell ceremony. When somebody sold a system, we got a bell. We still have it there. We would ring it, and every quarter we'd get together because pretty soon we got tired of 100 and 200 and 400 bells in a quarter. So we just had to do it all at once. Can we have that video, please?
2013 Summer Blowout!
Yeah! Blowout!
175 control units in a quarter. That's a blowout! 6,149 transducers in one quarter. That's a blowout! 209,000 Ulthera treatments to date. That's a blowout!
Ready to go through this? Woo! Blowout City! Yeah! Woo!
Thanks. So we also tried to have fun. We would film these and we'd send it out to our field organization, the direct sales force in the U.S., numbered about 100 at the end of our time, and then we had about a half dozen folks managing distributors in Europe, Latin America, and Asia Pacific regions, and it was really celebrating their accomplishments. But they would look forward to these ring the bell videos as much, they had as much fun seeing them as we did putting them together. So it was a way to commemorate that. I think for our group here, with this budding Arizona biosciences industry, I think we should all think about how we can help one another. Hopefully there are some good hints in what I've talked about here, but I'm with Merz until 6:30, 16. That's my contact information. If I can help anyone from advice or counsel, having a lot of scars on my back for all the mistakes I've made, I'm happy to do that. And I think if we have that attitude collectively, we can accelerate our growth here. And then finally, I just love this quote. It's attributed to Michelangelo. I don't know if it's from him. But the greatest danger for most of us is not that we aim too high and miss, but that we aim too low and achieve. So this is another part of Dad's advice for the kids. You know, think big, have big dreams, because you never know what you're capable of until you really test and challenge yourselves. And I think that's the same for us, and we need to inspire our teams to maybe do better than anybody imagined. Thanks for your time.